We are here for a different purpose altogether. We are going to be addressing about disability not only as a phenomenon, but we're going to be discussing disability in terms of how international ratification and domestic codification of laws in developing countries versus the execution of disability laws within those developing countries have a wide gulf between them. So we are going to be primarily addressing the lived reality of persons with disabilities, which is perhaps different from the international laws and domestic laws that govern the same as well. So in this regard, we have 5 amazing people as panelists today. Each one of them has strived and worked really hard to bridge that gap between disability laws and the lived reality that is faced by persons with disabilities that is unfortunately different. To what extent is it different? We will be seeking insights from our panelists, and to what extent can that gap be bridged? We will also seek insights. I will be starting with Ms. Sana Khurshid. She's a disability activist. Her journey has included getting a law promulgated in the province of Punjab, Pakistan, for persons with disabilities having enhanced rights in an unprecedented capacity. We will then move to Mr. Zulqernain Asghar, who is going to narrate his journey as the Vice President of the Pakistan People's Party Human Rights Division, and he's going to narrate about what the political spectrum is like for a person with a disability in terms of effectuating disability rights. We are then going to transition to Madam Heba Hagrass. She is the UN Special Rep for the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. She has obviously an unparalleled insight in terms of the international framework and the realities that exist in developing countries in terms of not only ratifying, but enforcement of disability laws, and cannot wait for insights. We will then transition to Her Excellency Ina Lepel, Germany's ambassador to Pakistan, and narrate and discuss about her journey, especially in terms of the 2025 Global Disability Summit, where an Amman Declaration was signed, whereby international development programs have been maneuvered to the extent that they will incorporate persons with disabilities on a 15% quota, which is unprecedented. So we will be seeking for insights from Her Excellency on why this happened and to what extent can the UN and the Amman-Berlin Declaration work together. And finally, we will be transitioning to Mr. Olivier Mailloux. I spent some time trying to pronounce his name, so I hope it came across fine. Yeah, thank you so much. And we will be seeking for his insights on how legal advocacy works in a country like France, where he is a human rights lawyer. And perhaps I can gain some insights on how we can effectuate disability rights within the confines of human rights advocacy. I myself am Ali Chughtai. I'm a lawyer, amongst other things, and I have been advocating for disability law for the past 6 years, and my journey also included being Sana Khurshid's lawyer in the petition titled Sana Khurshid versus Government of Punjab, which led to the promulgation of the Punjab Empowerment of Disabilities Act, and that was through the remarkable intervention of Honorable Justice Jawad Hasan, who you will be seeing in the next session as well. So, without further ado, Sana, I would like to start with you. If you could share insights briefly on your journey, which led to the promulgation of the landmark 2022 law, and whether / to what extent your lived reality is different from the codified laws, and where you see the future headed with regards to that.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here, and I think it's one of the most pertinent topics that they are in 2026 especially. I'm here today because you know, life happened to me, and it's fine. I'll move my water. Sure. that a system failed me and I chose not to accept that failure. I was not born with a disability. I acquired it at a very young age, and for me to accept my disability, I thought that was one of the biggest hurdles that I would come across. But once I accepted myself as a disabled person, that accident not just broke my body, but it exposed something far more broken. That is our systems, our mindsets. My journey in advocacy didn't start out as a thought out carefully, career plan. Because of my lived reality, when I stepped out of the world, I realized that this world was not designed for me anymore. I was not an able-bodied person, I was a disabled person, and that means that I didn't have the option to live. I existed, but I couldn't live. And as Ali said, that is how I started advocating for accessibility. Ali was my lawyer in the case. We litigated in the Lahore High Court. We started our journey in 2018, and we went to court asking for a very basic thing about in our Lahore Development Authority bylaws. There is a provision that every public and private building should have a ramp and a disabled toilets. When we first started our petition, we thought that it would just take us like maybe 2 hearings max. What we didn't know was what kind of opposition, what kind of obstacles we would face. Both of us were dismissed as being impractical, childish, and what were we asking for? For a ramp and a disabled toilet to be present in every commercial building. And I think that was a huge eye-opener for us, and especially for me, because I realized that, I didn't have a right to be here in the world just because I had gotten a disability. Somehow I had become very different. I mean, for me, I was the same son, I was just sitting in a wheelchair, but no, the society now viewed me through a lens of disability. I think instead of making me sort of lose hope and making me depressed, I took this on as a challenge. We litigated in the High Court in 2020, started in 2018, and those 2 of our petitions got disposed of in lieu of a higher Supreme Court judgment. But I think what worked for us that we're not easily, we don't give up easily. We were lucky enough to be in the court of a judge who was very empathetic, who wanted to do something for us, and we always laugh about that. We went to court asking for a ramp, and we came back with a huge law. The Punjab Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities Act got passed in 2022. It's a comprehensive act which we didn't have in our province before. Considering Punjab is the biggest province of our country, it was just unthinkable that people with disabilities were not even counted. We had to pretend that we didn't exist. We were not supposed to be visible. So I think getting that law passed, I think at that point we thought it is one of the biggest and the most difficult things that we could do. What I didn't realize was that the actual work was getting that law implemented. I mean, I'm the sort of person who always views the glass as being half full. And for me to realize that, okay, getting the law was the easy part. The implementation part of it is a whole new different story. I am part of the council that works with the Punjab government on the implementation of this law. And I just regret to say that, it's a slow process, it's a painstakingly slow process. But, to be a positive, things are getting done. At least we're having this conversation. I think 10 years back, we would not have had this panel. So, I mean, to give ourselves credit, because as we are a developing country, this conversation has started. And I think people are slowly realizing that, you can't just pretend that people with disabilities don't exist. We are very much present, we are very much there. Give us a seat at a table and let us talk for ourselves. We've had enough of talking, letting people talk for us. The slogan that we say, nothing without us, about us without us, that's very much true. Let the people with disabilities talk for themselves. We are, the same citizens as anybody in this country. So for me, this whole advocacy journey, the reason for it was because I wanted people like me to have the same options that exist for people with disabilities. I want to have the freedom to make the decision on how I live my life. And I think that's how my advocacy journey started, and that's how it is now. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Really appreciate it. It never gets old. Um, Mr. Zulqernain Asghar, following up on that, we heard about Sana's journey regarding her plight for disability advocacy in the province of Punjab. Could you shed some light on how you, as an advocate, as a person with disability, have experience within your political spectrum in the province of Sindh, whether it has acted as a supplemental tool in terms of enforcement of disability rights, and whether the political arena provides a mechanism for persons with disability to effectuate such rights, and in general about your experience in the province of Sindh as compared to the province of Punjab, Pakistan.
Thank you, Chughtai Sahab. First of all, before starting, I would like to compliment and appreciate Asma Jahangir Legal Firm and Asma Jahangir Foundations and Aliza and Nida and their whole team that you've done remarkable work. Before starting, I must say Asma Jahangir was conscious of Pakistan's human right, are conscious of global human right people, and she was a moral compass of, she is moral compass of Pakistan. Um, Before I start, before my own journey, I lay down the, my experience, because I'm by profession, I'm psychologist, and I provide counseling and therapy more than 3,300 people. While doing that work, I've realized, no, this is not sufficient. Before this, I'm political activist since my student age, and I was part of PSF. But during counseling and therapy, I've realized, no, this is not sufficient. I need to do some other work, because that will really eradicate the institutional impediments, and that is through legislation we can do these things. When I used to, I got my first CNIC, I said, this is, I did my matriculation, I've realized, no, this is not sufficient, because they says you need to have writer. I say, oh, why? Allow me to give exams in Braille. When I visit different part of the country, the things are tactile walking surfaces are not installed, Whitekin sensitive areas were not there. Before, when I first, it shocked me when I went there in a bank. They says, we don't open up your bank account. I say, why? They said, because how visually impaired person can operate? We usually don't open separate bank account of people with disabilities. What I did, we organized a protest in front of State Bank, and then in the meanwhile, whenever I did counseling of person living with disabilities, they've shared their experience of, if I look back, whatever I have experienced when you're doing therapy or counseling, that means you're living their experience also. I've spent more than 1,000 years life in terms of emotional or mental challenges, whatever people face. I said, no, political things, politicize this issue, take it out from the hospitals, that is mandatory. Before that, Pakistan has ratified Employment and Rehabilitation Act 1995 and 25th September, but when UNCRPD come into force, what I read, we arranged signature campaign. And that we put our mental health association, my organization, we did lot of research work. We did disability audit of political parties manifesto, and that we did. But the issue was when they provide relaxation to the fair, when they did pass the legislation, institutional impediments are being removed, but issues still remain there. How? If they provide fair relaxation, but platforms, bus stations, airports, and even zebra crossing are not accessible, that means we need to understand the diversity and degree of disability. And when we look these things, I started pursuing my political party and different government departments, because I've realized because I've studied in special education schools, I studied in Gordon College, Kazim University, we've realized no, this is not sufficient. There is need to. But during political audit of political parties manifestos, so I've realized no. If they write down in their manifesto, but infrastructure are not accessible, how people will cast their vote? But later on, our chairman and my party is a bit sensitive about the issues. So they have passed us Sin Disability Right Act later before. But in Balochistan and Islamabad laws, they've passed this, and KP is yet to be left, because in KP there is no Disability Right Act. But in Punjab and Sindh, these laws have somewhat room for implementation. If we talk about Islamabad legislation, there is less. There are challenges of implementation, but because things are very starry, but enforcement implementation mechanism are not there. Another thing, across the country, I've realized, Chughtai Sahab, you. Whenever I finish my time, just do let me know.
Please feel free to continue. We're really enjoying it.
When I've seen those things, I've realized, this council itself are little bit ambiguous and little bit, larger than toothless. Why? Because they cannot enforce things. That is the reason. This is the part of suggestion over here. That is the reason I said there must be commission, disability commission, who has the power to enforce the law. Another thing I must say, there is social impediments, institutional impediments, but there are social or intellectual barriers also. Because we need to, over here we are reflecting on the society, but we need to reflect on the disability movement also. I usually challenge the things in different perspective. Social barrier, when we talk about social barrier, people think, use person-centered language, differently able. We are disabled by the society. We have all those capabilities. It's a fault of society. It's a far lies in the infrastructure of the society. Why? Without including 15 to 18% population, how your systems or everything could be completed. That means corporate sector and other sectors are, lacking their. If we talk about corporate model, because they use different model, but you are missing the 15% or 18% your audience. Everything, but there is serious gaps about the implementation of the law. There is a case people living with disabilities. First, I'm using this term interchangeably. Those they have permanent disabilities and those they have short-term disabilities. That's the reason I use the word. We are living with disabilities. We have disabilities. And they face different challenges. There are challenges are little bit different for those they are living with the developmental disabilities, and the challenges are a little bit different. They have intellectual or invisible disabilities, like learning disabilities, and we need to understand that spectrum also. And
thank you, sir. I really appreciate your insights. I think what you highlighted, what struck out most for me were two things. Number one, naturally, there's a consistent theme of the lack of enforceability, and we are always envisioning mechanisms through which we can do that, and it still eludes us. And the second thing you narrated about was the 15 to 20%. I don't think people realize that persons with disabilities or differently able persons constitute about 15 to 20% of our society, and which is what we will transition to Her Excellency about in regards to the Amman Berlin Declaration last year, where the percentage number is 15, and that highlights even more what a growing percentage is being systematically ignored. Having said that, we will now transition to first Heba Hagrass. Sana made the comment about nothing about us without us. Now, as you stated, it is not just a slogan, but it's a legal standard. Could you dilate a bit more on this slogan and CRPD's role in ensuring that states not only embody this slogan in letter, but spirit as well, especially developing countries?
Good evening, everyone. I'm honored actually to be amongst all of you, and I'm really happy that I managed to make it until Pakistan to enjoy your company and give you some insights how the international level works and how we relate between the regional and the local level. As I was asked to discuss the major slogan that has been going for more than 20 years of nothing about us without us, let me start with that because it will summarize maybe the practical life that both my colleagues brought up in a few and more concise way. As the Special Rapporteur of Persons with Disability, it is an honor for me to be in this session and to enjoy discussing the topics, the different topics that will be brought up amongst us. When we are talking about nothing about us without us, we are capturing two obligations that sits at the heart of disability framework, which is participation and evidence-based action. Under international human laws, and particularly the Convention of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, for short we say CRPD, states must ensure that persons with disabilities are involved in the decision-making that affects them. So here is the first key, participation. We have to be present when policies and legislation are written about our lives. This is the first part. The second part is that we have to use right-based data. We cannot imagine what are the needs of persons with disabilities and start putting policies or laws if we don't have real proper data in our hands. So actually, nothing about us without us is not a slogan alone. It is a legal standard. We have to put it and really perform legal standards on what we are talking about. The CRPD requires states to closely consult with persons with disabilities and actively involve them in the decision-making through the representative organization in the development and implementation, and please let us underline the word implementation, of legislation and policies, and in other decision-making processes concerning their lives. It is our lives, not somebody else. So when we are consulted, we are giving a decision about our lives, and we are not ready to leave this in the hands of somebody else. It also requires states to establish governance, monitoring, frameworks that embedded participation and accountability. I think this sentence is very important. If we are going to have legislation, we are going to have policies, we need to have implementation. We cannot skip one step, because what usually happens in different countries is that, yes, we sign, ratify conventions, we sign and ratify protocols, we sign and we do this and that. On the regional level, we do the same. And then when we have the law, we don't provide the regulations that implements the law on the very, very basic grassroots level. So if we have a law without the bylaws, without the regulations, then it is not applicable. There is no way that you can take a law and ask the small clerk in any province to really provide you with the advantages or the services that is supposed to be there, because he doesn't have his own tools to really apply it. So you, as the legal and jurist people, you are the ones to start having these laws in the real basic forms that are really being possible to implement. If it is not done, then the law stays up there and people stay down there, and there are no threads in between the people and between the law so that it can really work. So this is very important, and I think this is where we are, where we should work together, and where we should work on the local level together. So having the framework and having the participation and having the accountability is what is really important. If persons with disabilities are absent from the table, policies and predictably will produce barriers. If somebody else is to do the job for us, we will have other barriers, new barriers, maybe different barriers, but we are not going to have the solution as if we sit together and decide on how to do it. But participation must be matched by the ability to count in any way and then advance the rights. The CRPD makes it explicit. Article 31st, which is the ruling convention for the globe. Article 31 obliges states to collect appropriate information, including statistical and research data, to formulate and implement policies that give effect to the convention. So we need the information, we need to implement it so that we can really apply the convention and the different laws, and to identify and address the barriers facing persons with disabilities. Okay.
Wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you so much, Madam Hagrass, for your insights, especially when you narrated about PWDs being partakers and instrumental in the decision-making process. We often ignore the fact that at the end of the day, the persons effectuated and impacted most are the ones that are best placed to be the legislators and the decision makers. And this is something that was hard for Sana and I, because in context of the Punjab Act, it was really hard to convince people that obviously have not faced any kind of disability that Sana's voice, for instance, needed to be heard, and persons with other kinds of disabilities. Really appreciate that. And regarding the rules and regulations, absolutely. You can have a Parent Act. Having said that, if you do not work hard on enforcing and formulating regulations with the relevant councils, then it's a job half done, 100%. Great, and that actually provides a lot of insight for litigators such as myself. We're going to transition to Her Excellency. Your Excellency, at the 2025 Global Disability Summit, Germany spearheaded the Amman Berlin Declaration, which amongst other things stated that all international development programs would have a 15% allocation of persons with disabilities. Now, my question is, was this framework established as a response to developing countries such as Pakistan not implementing the ratified UN CRPD in its domestic legislation? If so, to what extent? Or if not, what is the governing reason for it?
Now, about your question, this was not about finger pointing or about attributing responsibility, but really out of the realization that we were not making the progress we wanted to, and also the realization that maybe the developing partners were also not fully integrating this into their work. So the idea was to create something that is proactive and constructive to really enhance the global implementation of the UN Convention on the Right of Persons with Disabilities. The aim is really to function as a support and an implementation aid for all states party who have pledged to realize the rights of persons with disabilities to fully participate in their societies. So more specifically, as you pointed out, the purpose is two practical applications, two practical key commitments. One, to make all development cooperation programs inclusive and accessible to persons with disabilities. And second, to ensure that at least 15% of all development cooperation programs at country level should explicitly pursue disability inclusion as an objective. So this decision seeks to bridge the gap between legal commitments and practical implementation, rather than attributing responsibility to individual actors. On the contrary, it re-emphasizes the joint responsibility in creating a world where persons with disabilities can exercise their rights to the fullest.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for shedding light on this. And as a follow-up question, how can the UNCRPD and the Amman Berlin Declaration and its stakeholders work together to effectuate this set vision? And I believe Pakistan also endorsed this declaration, if I'm correct.
Yes, Pakistan very much endorses this declaration, and we are working very actively with Pakistan. For instance, we had a project on teacher-parents associations in schools, aiming at reducing the dropout rates in schools by school improvement, and that very explicitly included representatives of the disabled children, of other vulnerable groups, and there were some quite good results out of that. We are now thinking about how we can integrate this more into the technical and vocational training, which we are supporting more. And I must say, from my own experience, now that I'm more conscious of this with the Amman Berlin Declaration, I visited a vocational education campus, and I noticed that, they built the boys' hostel before they built the girls' hostel, although the girls' hostel would have been more urgently needed in order to better include the women. But I did not look at all if there were ramps for the wheelchair-bound, if there were facilities for braille or something like that. So nowadays, when I go looking at a project, I would also check at those things. How accessible are we? Are we actually doing this? Are we really being inclusive? Because I think every practical measure of being accessible and inclusive is an inspiration and an idea and a best practice to really spread this, for people to understand and also discover, hey, it's not that difficult. And that would be the first step to really mainstreaming this whole issue into all policies, into all sectors, from employment generation to disaster preparedness.
Thank you so much for that insight. And honestly, it is a really refreshing and ingenuitive mechanism that has been envisioned for a reality that will be, hopefully in a few years' time, very different for persons with disability all around the world. And international development programs definitely can set the benchmark in regards to that. Really appreciate your insights. I'm going to transition to Olivier. Olivier, we have narrated and talked about various aspects of disability law enforcement in letter and spirit, our governing obligations. Could you shed some light on your human rights advocacy within France, how the existing framework of UNCRPD is an aid to your practice? And to what extent can developing countries incorporate legal advocacy in a way that can meaningfully advocate for persons with disabilities for a better tomorrow?
Thank you very much. First, I want to say gigantic thanks to the organizer. It was just a stunning event, and I'm very proud of it. And I would like to congratulate the French Embassy for the guesting too. I want to share my experience as a lawyer in France, specialized in fundamental rights, and I was very touched when I saw the title of the panel, and nothing without us. It's just fantastic, and I want to be in, because you know I want to start by very personal consideration. 5 years ago, I was victim of a tragic accident of car, and all my shoulders were totally destroyed with humerus bones, everything. And I was very sick. It was practically it was impossible for me to move any arms. And thanks God, because we have a very strong solidarity in France for the medical care. I was surgeon, and it took practically 3 years of rehab. And what it was very strong for me, first, this is the solidarity and the manifestation of the fraternity, because you know that in France it's very important. So I was very, very happy to have not the fees to engage, to be cured, and it's very important. Anyway, you know, I was victim of discrimination. When I was sick, no one was able to feel and imagine that I was sick and I can move my arms. And immediately, I was a sort of invisible disabled. And this is the reason why I am fighting for this kind of things. And you know, whether you are a lawyer or anything, job, another job or everything like that, immediately people say, oh, you are disabled, so you are less efficient. And immediately it could be a sort of shame, because in plus you are handicapped and disabled, so it could be a sort of feeling of shame when you're talking about it. You are tired too, because every people say, oh, you are disabled, so it could be a trouble. And we have a very long fatigue, and unfortunately this is not totally adapted to the work that we used to do. So we don't want any pity. This is what I want to say. And I deplore, and I insist on it, even in France, we have no access to a lot of building and court and everything. And this is the reason why there is sort of black number of disabled persons, because people are too shy to say, I am disabled. I imagine, you know, when you have psychiatric troubles, I used to preach for these people because it's very important in France too. And people could be jailed because they are totally insane. And immediately I was thinking, oh my God, but we don't realize that they are totally sick and disabled. And psychiatric treats are really, unfortunately, have a very bad perception about them, and it's very sad. I will add the things, you know, I was aware of the difficulties of access of medical care and medical surgeon. In France, by example, as a lawyer, we used to fight for the right of disabled people, because when you are fired, some insurance can say, I don't want to pay you, because there is a sort of money-back salary, a sort of rent, a sort of things like that. And unfortunately, we have a lot of trouble with private company of insurance that they don't want to pay. So you are sick, you are disabled, and in plus, you have practically no money, and you have not the right to claim everything because you feel totally loneliness. So we try to do to resolve these kind of things, And there is another question, this is about the minorities. The minorities, they don't want to go to the hospital to try to have access of different methods of curation. And I used to pledge for a nomad people, you know, people that they want to run into the mobile home, and there is a lot of discrimination in Europe about this kind of people, and unfortunately, we discover that there are practically 15 years less of capacity of living, and it was a tragedy. And because there is no access of medical staffies, medical doctor, and nothing is done for them. They are not aware of their so many rights, and nobody wants to say you have the right to do that, you have to access that, you can be cured. So this is a limit of the public policy. And I used to work with some organization of disabled people too. And this is always, like we said before, nothing is designed really for disabled people. We have some trouble to access to the court, to everything, even if we try, and we have a fantastic legislation in order to oblige with a positive obligation to realize some building things. Anyway, we have such many positive obligations too. You have a new access of some job, but the counterpart is a sort of discrimination, because immediately it could be considered like a sort of pity. You are there because you are disabled, and it's not so easy. I want to underline that in France we try to fight against discrimination. European Union too. European Union is fighting for that. There is a lot of subvention and fee for to sustain a lot of campaign about it. And what I fear a lot, practically, this is what I fear a lot, is the fact that being different, being disabled, is a sort of stigmatization, and we are considered that less efficient. And even for the public policy, we used to say, why I have to pay, in France, this is the speech, why I have to pay for your sickness. Some people are saying that. They say, there is too many taxes, we want to try to make it low, and I have no reason to pay for you and for your disability. And I said, but I was exactly like you before. And now, thanks God, there is this fantastic system. If not, I would be totally without arms. And I realize that people are not aware of the chance that we are living in France in this condition. Anyway, we have to check the difficulties. We have to try to fix it, and maybe make it public knowledge, with a strong knowledge about what we are suffering from. And you know, practically, this is not a question of changing of law, but we have to change the sight of the people. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. It keeps working and not working. I'm just going to speak out loud. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. And I think what it shows is that in different capacities and magnitudes, there is this universal calling for better recognition, implementation, and enforcement of rights of persons with disabilities. And I am so fortunate that each five of you have shared not only your experience, but acumen, and also are working so hard to bridge that gap that exists between the actual laws and the lived reality, which should be one and the same. And we are getting there. And through you all, each one of you and collectively, sooner rather than later. And based on that, I don't know if the platform allows us to ask the audience for questions. If so, if someone can navigate. Yes, please.
My name is Emmanuel. I'm from Naga's Law Department. I'm a student myself. I study at College. When we talk about disability, we used during my classes, whether it's during on the road, whether it's right now. I'm more stimulated by a lot of. I guess I'm audible like this.
We can hear you.
So when
You
we
are quite
talk
audible.
about or when we legislate specific laws about disabilities, we really convenience out mental disabilities. So shouldn't there be, when you talk about disability, you should write in all its diversity. So mental disability does factor into it.
If I can take the initiative in answering the question, within the capacity of Punjab,
Within the capacity of all the laws.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Within-
Ali, if you allow me, can I answer? Okay. Noor, if I'm calling your name, your question is well taken. First of all legislation address all type of disabilities. If we talk about Punjab and Sindh laws, it not merely talk about type of disabilities. These both laws also talk about degree of disability also. The problem lies when we talk about implementation of those laws. But in both provinces, Punjab and Sindh, if I may, because in Islamabad and Balochistan and GB's law, they don't address the degree, but they do talk about typology first. Second thing is, it's quite common notion when people think about disability in Pakistan, or when they are implementing things, they merely talk about physical disability, but we, as per legislation and rules are concerned, they do talk about these things. And disability not only talk about this, but problem lies with the rules of business, right? When we talk about legislators, we mobilize them, we provide them input different, and when they frame a rule, social welfare department use always charity-based approach. That is the major issue. Second part is my answer is usually it's lies people's head also. When they think disability, they think physical disability. Thank you. Anyone can answer?
Sana, would you like to add to
I'd
that?
just like to add on to this, especially when I'll just talk from the context of the Punjab law. We were very particular when we were sitting down and formulating the law that we wanted the definition to add all kinds of disabilities and be very fluid, that a lot of disabilities are going to come up in the future which are not recognized as disabilities right now. So we were very mindful of that point. So I hope that satisfies you.
Thank you. We'll probably take 2 more questions. Anyone in the audience wants to? Anyone want to add something to that? No? Yes, please, sir.
Just speak loudly. I'm from the European Union delegation in Islamabad, and I found it very interesting a panel, and thanks for sharing all the struggles and the successes and remaining challenges that you see here in Pakistan and throughout the world. I would just like to add to the excellent points that were made by the ambassador of Germany, that the CRPD will be part of the conventions that have to be respected by Pakistan to be part of our preferential access to the EU markets in 1 year or 2. It's called the GSP Plus. You might have heard about it. It's a unilateral concession whereby Pakistan and other countries can access the EU market without any taxes. So it's a big deal if the country respects a series of conventions on labor rights, environmental standards, and human rights. And as of next year, if the regulation is voted as it's been proposed and endorsed by the European Council, compliance to the CRPD will be one of these requirements. So it will be looking not only at the laws and whether they are adopted in all provinces, but also at implementation. And we hope that this can be a driver for change also here in Pakistan. Thank you.
We have time for 1 more question, if anyone wants to ask. All right, I suppose not. But on a concluding note, like we stated, that this panel discussion has been very illuminating for me on a personal level and on a collective level. I hope we all learned a lot from each other. We are all here for a plight
that has evaded society, unfortunately, for many decades, but we have come a long way. And on a concluding note, I would also like to appreciate Honorable Justice Jawad Hassan, who actually was the activist judge that enabled the promulgation of the Punjab Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities Act. So thank you so much. And thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this panel. We hope it was worth your while. Thank you.